The Mega Drive was in desperate need of a good side-scrolling beat-em-up. In 1989, Golden Axe was released to rave reviews, but the fans demanded more. In 1990, Double Dragon appeared on the system, but in 1991, Sega developed and published Streets of Rage on the Sega Mega Drive. How does it stand up 30 years later? In this episode, let's find out. The game hit European shelves in October 1991 and was an instant success. Its simple, no-nonsense action and controls made it easy to pick up and start fighting. First the plot. The city had been taken over by a criminal syndicate, headed up by the evil Mr. X. The city is overrun and no one is safe. Adam Hunter, Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding are veteran ex-police officers who have left the force to fight back. So that's the plot. Well, what's the game like? Well, it's a two-player simultaneous scrolling beat-em-up. You choose one of the three ex-police officers and go and kick some ass. The controls are easy. C jumps, B attacks, and A calls on your police officer friends to help clear the screen. You can perform combo attacks by repeatedly hitting your enemies. You can get hold of them and pound them into the ground if you're close enough. The game is spread out over 8 stages: City Street, the Inner City, the beachfront, on the bridge, aboard a ship, the factory, the freight elevator, and finally at the Syndicate headquarters. As you've heard from them little clips, they all have their own soundtracks and they're all memorable and add fantastic depth to the game. Each level has end-of-level baddies. Unlike most games of this genre, they are not named and just appear as boss in the top panel. The manual does give them names, and they are named in the game's sequels. The baddies are cartoonishly bigger than your hero, and some are more difficult than others, but I do wonder if the Ultimate Warrior ever knew about this likeness that appeared in the game. At the end of level 8, you get the choice of joining Mr. X. If you say yes, and are in a one-player game, you are thrown back a couple of stages and eventually take over the crime syndicate yourself. However, if you're a moral, upstanding citizen that has just beaten up hundreds of baddies, you can eventually take down Mr. X and bring peace to the city. If you're in a two-player game and one joins and one doesn't, you end up fighting each other to the death to see who rules supreme. The enemies that you face come in groups. They all have different attacks, some are the same enemy but coloured differently, offering different attacks. As per the norm for these games of the time, there's a lady dressed quite sexily with a whip. Not that the teenage me was complaining at the time. Later stages see the return of previous bosses as mid-boss characters, and if they weren't hard enough to beat the first time round, they definitely get harder the second. The game starts you with 3 lives and 3 continues, so it's not super difficult to complete. If you add in a 2-player mode, it is a fun little game that will keep you going back to beat it. And whether you save the city, or run it yourself, basically whatever floats your boat. The game has been re-released many times as part of many compilation packs. The original was ported to the Game Gear in 1992 and then the Master System in 1993. There were 2 sequels released on the Mega Drive, and Streets of Rage 4 has just been released in 2020 on the new generations of computers. There was a gap of 26 years between games. The games through the Mega Drive history did improve through the franchise and they will be covered a little bit later on. However, as the genesis of the franchise, this game stands out in the early Mega Drive catalogue and it still holds its own today. Thanks for watching this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Noob Game Reviews.